2025, are you ready to rock? Dave's Killer Bread is ready to rock 2025 and your reset this January with Killer Taste, Killer Nutrition, and a killer sweepstakes to win a VIP concert prize pack with round-trip airfare, luxury hotel stay, and much more. Text RESET to 73876 and enter for a chance to win. Dave's Killer Bread. Bread amplified. No purchase necessary. Visit daveskillerbread.com/reset for details.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on some immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. But for those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk,
Dude, this thing's not even staying on. What the
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen. Hey, welcome to another edition of the Sackheads Radio Show. I'm your host, Sackhead Clint. This is September 9th, 2015. Seated to my left, after literally flying across the studio from getting the soundboard up and running.
Waddling, flying, same thing.
Flying, waddling, rolling.
Rolling.
Whatever. Is my friend and co-host, Sackhead Sean. How are you, sir? I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here in beautiful downtown, wherever the hell we are.
And and just so that everybody has a clear understanding of what's happening here right now, Socko's not here
again,
and my computer is dead.
Yes, it is. This is bizarre.
That Socko's not here, or that my computer is dead.
Both. Do we have to cancel the entire show? Do we have to cancel it because your computer's not working?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good.
No.
It's back.
No. It does this. It gives me a white screen, and I'm not being racial.
No.
And then it goes black. And once it goes black, it doesn't go back.
Whatever, Peaches.
Until I hit the... No. I'm not Peaches. Although we do have a great movie idea. We have a phenomenal movie idea, but we can't talk about it. You're just going to have to wait and see if we actually get a script. And we actually have an excellent cast of characters as well.
We do have an excellent cast of characters as well. It's so funny how things are born out of necessity. I was just saying earlier that I needed to have a laugh. It's been a rough couple days. Just, how life sometimes just takes control and does whatever it wants, and you just kind of get caught in the whirlwind. And that's been life for the last few days for me. So to be able to have a comedic outlet, and then to be able to come up with what I think might be one of the best movies of all times. And maybe I might be a tad biased because one of the characters is near and dear to me, T-Bone.
Me?
Oh, yeah, you too.
I got Peaches.
I'm just saying that. The Bob. Yeah, Liberal Jake, Carly. I just really think that this movie has legs. That's all I'm saying. We have the potential for a blockbuster.
And it would more be like a cult classic along the Mel Brooks line. Like, this wouldn't be a...
It would be like Clerks. You remember the movie Clerks Kevin Smith did years ago, and when it came out, not too many people saw it, but now everybody's seen it. It's like Office Space.
Yes.
I think it's going to be along those lines. I think it's going to be something magical.
Right, like a, almost like a, how you say? Almost like a, Blazing Saddles meets Young Frankenstein meets Tropic Thunder.
Yes, something to that effect.
Right.
Yes, very good. I think that's a very good
Yeah.
analogy.
Thank you.
And maybe like just like a touch of like Dumb and Dumber.
A touch.
Yeah,
Just a touch.
just a smidgen, if
right.
you will.
A smidgen with a D.
With a D. Absolutely. So we'll be working on that for a long period of time.
Right.
And I think it'll be. All I'm just saying is I'm picking out my Oscar suit now. The suit that you wear to the Oscar. I'm going to start picking it out.
The Grouch, not the award show. There's no way that...
Oh, no.
unless we just play ourselves.
Right. Top movie, top comedy. I think the potential's there.
It would be better if we just had a camera and followed all of these characters around in real life.
But it would take the mystique away, wouldn't it? Because then you'd know them too well and realize that all of them aren't a stretch from reality. That's the problem.
Right.
You know, when you watch a movie or something like this movie will be.
There's no way those people exist.
Exactly. You want to be transformed into, especially with comedies, you want to go into that world that they exist in and have fun with them.
Right.
Because it's not real life. If you realize that other people are having that much fun in real life every single day and you aren't, it could be depressing.
It could be. It could be.
Oh,
I'm
man.
excited.
I am very excited. I think it's going to go.
I don't know that the people who would be perfect to play the parts would play them.
Probably not. Maybe like 2 out of 4. 5. 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5.
Yeah.
Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn, I think, would be in. And Giamatti takes some strange roles. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So you never know.
Okay.
The hardest part, I think, for us is getting somebody to produce it. I think that would be the difficult part.
Yeah.
And of course, dealing with us and a couple other people on set directing it. Not the actual director, but making sure that it stays true to form, I think.
Which would be us.
Us. I think that would be very difficult as well, but we'll get there.
There's no way anybody would pay to produce this.
No.
We'd have to do it ourselves, low budget, like Good Will Hunting, but not as serious.
Well, and the best part is without giving too much away.
They were from Boston. You're from Boston. We could do this.
Without giving too much away, think small town in the Midwest.
Uh-huh.
ISIS infiltrates.
No.
No?
No.
Why not?
No.
A comedy ensues.
No. FBI gets kicked out.
The FBI gets kicked out.
That's all we're saying.
The whole movie.
The whole movie.
Oh, man, there's a lot to talk about this
no,
evening
there's
when we
not. I
get
don't
to
even
those
know what that
topics.
board
How are you,
says.
my friend?
I'm okay.
Yeah? Everything
Yeah.
going all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
And we literally talked about this for like 2 hours.
Yeah,
Just killing ourselves.
That's the best part. I don't care if anyone else finds this funny. I think it's a friggin' riot.
Oh, no, it is. There's no doubt.
It'll be a quick script. I don't think there'll be too much scripting involved as much as off the cuff.
Alcohol.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Alcohol, scripted alcohol, which would be appropriate, actually,
For all of it.
for all of it. By the way,
That's how we prepped our show tonight,
that is how we
actually.
prepped our show. Had a beer and dinner, and
Yeah.
I got to give a shout. We can give a shout out to the restaurant, can't we?
Yeah.
It's complimentary. So Hoppy's in Sacramento,
Hoppy's in Sacramento.
great little brew house. You brought me there. It was the first time I'd been there. Great. Beer.
I'd never been there before.
Really, because the waiter goes, "Hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you in almost 24 hours."
It's actually less than 24 hours, which is funny.
You were there at lunch. But good beer, good food, and thanks to Hoppy's.
And great company that you had.
I did have great company. I felt bad that you were stuck with yours, but, you know,
Yeah.
everything else. K. Saria.
What?
What?
I don't even know
K.
what
Sarah?
that meant anymore, actually. So I think I have my computer up and running, no
Oh.
thanks to Sacco.
No thanks. Whatsoever to Sacco.
None.
for anything that he did right now.
Where is he?
I don't know.
Is he on the way?
He should be, right?
He
The show
should.
started 9 minutes ago.
He should be a lot of things,
We
Sean,
haven't talked about a damn thing in 9 minutes.
which is perfect. we're right on schedule.
Oh, a horrific schedule that it is.
It's a great schedule tonight.
It is a great schedule.
I know. This is why I said
Let's
this.
look at the big board of topics tonight.
Okay.
I get 2 surprise segments.
No, you got to read them verbatim.
It's segment 1, Surprise Sean. Segment 2, Surprise Sean Part 2.
Right. Way to go. I just wanted to hear you say part due.
Followed by-
And that I actually spelled it correctly, by the
You
way.
did, as a matter of fact. Major props to you.
Thank you.
It's a little weird that you can speak French. But talk about the Iran deal, Russia and Syria. Not Russia and Syria, Russia in Syria. Clinton block, and then we'll wrap up the show with something to make you feel warm and cuddly on the way home. So, got a lot to talk about.
Which is Sean's hairy belly.
It is warm and cuddly.
This is why we're going to talk about it.
Throw it right over to my good friend Sackhead Clint for the first segment of the show.
You're going to throw it over to me?
Yeah.
It was like a quarterback. What if I fumble?
Well, you know,
What if I drop the handoff? Well, it was a throw, so what if it's incomplete?
quarterback like, I don't know, say Tom Brady, who's starting tomorrow night.
Oh, is he? Yeah, congratulations for that. He appealed his sentence. Now, why doesn't the NFL commissioner say, okay, yeah, 5 games got overturned. Yeah, you're on a 3-game suspension. Effective right now. There's no time to get an injunction.
Well, most likely
So our first segment for Surprise Sean. What?
nothing. Get ahead.
You're all wound up because you want to respond
No.
so bad.
No.
You do. I can see it because you get that look on your face.
I think the federal court judge
Right
responded
there.
enough.
Huh?
I think the federal court judge
Yeah, but now
responded enough.
now Robert Goodell could just say, okay, 2 games.
Yeah, I think
Nanny, nanny, boo, boo.
you're right. He absolutely could, and then the impending lawsuit would be ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
And he'd probably lose his job at that point.
He's a dictator. I mean, tater. Tater. I said tater.
Like mashed.
Dictator. Mashed. I mean, he's a mashed tater.
He's a mashed tater.
He's a mashed, not mashed dick, but tater.
Either way.
So Florida gunmaker has produced a rifle that Muslims will not use.
Why?
Have you heard about this?
Hold on.
No Googling it. This is Surprise Sean segment. Put your phone down.
I'm videotaping.
Phones down.
I'm videotaping it.
You're videotaping yourself. Well, it's too late. You already got the crux of the story.
Okay, so gunmaker, anti-Muslim gun.
In Florida, makes an anti-Muslim gun. Spikes Tactical and Apopka etched its new AR-15 with a Bible verse that says, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hand for war, my fingers for battle."
That's awesome.
Right?
So he made it an ISIS-proof weapon.
Yes. The company spokesman, who's a former Navy SEAL, Ben Thomas, says that, hey, by putting a Bible verse on there, we're pretty much ensuring that our weapon's not going to be used by terrorists.
That's awesome.
It's called the Crusader,
Well, why wouldn't it be?
right? And he's saying, the gun's not racist. We didn't say no Muslims.
Right.
We just put a Bible verse on it.
And that's okay.
So the scripture is etched on one side of the magazine well, and on the other side is a cross. That dates from the Crusades of the Middle Ages.
But that's all right.
I agree.
You're not saying...
I think it's now. Hang on a second. It gets better. The safety selector switch
Yes.
has 3 settings: peace, war, and God wills it. You were videotaping.
Oh, that one I...
Come on!
Too long! That was
Come on!
That is awesome! God wills it.
Yes.
All right, guys. Selector switches to God wills it.
God wills it.
We're going in.
God wills it. Oh, it's great. So the Council of American Islamic Relations
Is
of
angry
Florida,
as hell.
they responded.
Nest of Hornets.
They responded and they said, quote, Sadly, this manufacturer's fancy new gun won't do anything to stop the real threat in America, the escalating problem of gun violence.
That's the problem.
This is just another shameful marketing ploy intended to profit from the No, he didn't say that. Profit from the promotion of hatred, division, and violence. Now, what if
Yep.
this gun had a picture of the Prophet Muhammad on it? Then they could profit from the Prophet.
You could profit from the profit.
Right.
And probably double your profits at that point.
Right.
And then
Only if a prophet was holding the prophet.
Right.
Which they wouldn't do.
this is very true.
They couldn't do.
Right.
Or manufacture the weapon in pig's blood. Right? Dip every single weapon in pig's blood. Every weapon that comes out of our shop
All the steel is cooled in
is
pig's blood.
yes, dipped in pig's blood, and then we clean it so it functions.
I love that CARE actually responds. Here's the best part about this.
Yeah.
If I'm CARE and I'm really serious about my cause, I wouldn't even respond. I wouldn't even acknowledge that it existed. Only because at the end of the day, I personally would be mature enough and intelligent enough to go, well, the argument's pretty plain and simple, right? There's nothing
Right.
on there that says we can't. We would choose not to, given the choice.
Right.
So I'm not going to have this. I'm not even going to acknowledge. Hey, what do you think about the gun? You mean somebody else did put a weapon together and sold it? Okay. Well, it says something about Christ. Okay.
Okay, we're going to build one that says
Right.
die infidel.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Okay.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And that would be their right. Whether I like
Yeah.
it or not, it would be their right. But no, and this is where CARE, I think, pisses a lot of people off in this world, is they always feel because somebody insinuates that it might be Muslim related, they have to get right in.
Right.
Oh,
And then redirect.
Oh.
The real problem isn't terrorists trying to kill people. The real
has
problem
been.
it's gun violence.
right.
Not violence.
Gun violence.
We don't use guns for violence in this country, or we usually blow ourselves up.
Right. Cut people's heads off.
So what if we say stop the suicide bombing violence?
Stop Muslim extremism.
Stop gun violence. Stop Muslim violence.
Yeah. Oh, well, which you would think they would be for stopping the Muslim violence.
Hey, why don't we start a movement, Jewish Lives Matter?
JLM.
JLM.
Jewish lives do matter.
They do.
To us,
All lives matter.
all lives matter very much. so.
Right?
Yeah, well, I want to get back to CARE and the gun thing for a second.
Okay, go.
But these a-holes have nothing better to do. They're a-holes. CARE are a-holes. I don't care.
You don't care. You don't care.
I don't
Yeah.
care. C-A-R-E.
If you did care, we'd have an issue.
You know, I just, like I said, I would not mind CARE if their approach wasn't to attack everything that they deem as an insult to Islam.
Almost literally.
Sometimes very literally.
What?
Oh, there's no, it's never been a linked attack to CARE and terrorism. How dare you make that analogy? Okay. But, you know, if CARE's whole thing was to actually, you know, promote the good word of Islam, or not even get involved in the political, just say, no, you want to know about it's Islamic relations. If there are organizations that want to know how to work with maybe mosques or Islamic group or whatever, you know, do that sort of thing. Talk about the good things that some mosques do, and I'll be they do go out in the community, in some communities, and work in gardens and all this other stuff, and clean up their community. All the things that they should be highlighting, that every organization highlights when they do to show the good that their organization is doing.
Yeah.
You never hear about that crap.
You don't. And, you know, this kind of segues into a whole, they talked about the whole gun violence thing. And we actually did a thing where the police chief, James Craig in Detroit, was saying, hey, arm yourselves, the citizen. And as kind of an aside to that, crime has dropped by 12% in that city since he started doing this. And he did a survey of 1,800 felons. And in that survey, Chief Craig discovered that, quote, armed citizens were the biggest fear of those felons.
Amazing,
right? So, and this is Josh Earnest, if you recall, after the two reporters were shot on camera.
Yeah.
Of course, the White House came out and made a statement urging Congress to pass legislation to reduce gun violence, right? Again, never let a good tragedy go to waste,
Absolutely
right? Or a good
not.
crisis go to waste, and they called on it. But just as kind of an aside, because it's weird how we just compared the White House to care. Anyways, I digressed.
We should call them and get their reaction.
Could you imagine if one person exercising their Second Amendment right had been armed in a lot of these circumstances, in a lot of these situations? And Detroit is proof right there.
Right.
A 12% reduction in crime rate, 1,800 felons interviewed and questioned, saying, no, armed citizens are by far their biggest fear.
Right. That's a reality. And I want to go back to the gun thing, to this gun maker who put the...
You mean the Patriot?
The Patriot who put the Bible verse on the weapons and the cross. The reality is there are a lot of things out there that bear crosses and Bible verses and other aspects of Christianity, Judaism as well, and other faiths and religions. Why aren't they speaking out against those? Right? Why aren't they having a problem against those?
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand, because it's a gun, and this is obviously anti-Muslim. Well, no, it's not. It could just be pro-Christian weapons. And that's okay, right?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Nope.
So to assume it's an anti-Muslim...
It doesn't say death to Muslims.
Right.
It doesn't say
It says
death to
it will
anybody.
not be used by radical Muslims to hurt anybody.
Right. Probably.
Probably.
Right.
I mean, or if they read it and inspect their weapon first, then probably not.
God wills it.
But yes, that's awesome. I think that is such a great selector switch. So just absolute jackassery out of care once again.
So, yeah, but the big story again, kudos to the gun manufacturer.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Way to go, capitalism.
Absolutely. I would love to purchase that weapon. Unfortunately, I live in California.
Right.
Now, Surprise Sean Part 2. You may have heard this story. New Orleans is using a little-known ordinance. No. Get your fingers off the keyboard.
No, I'm not Googling.
Okay. They use a little-known ordinance that allows them to remove any statue or monument that it deems a nuisance if the statue honors, praises, or fosters ideologies which are in conflict with the requirements of equal protection for citizens as provided by the Constitution and laws of the United States. So what they're trying to do is they are trying to remove Confederate statues that are up, including statues of Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, who was a huge payoff. Like Robert E. Lee was an amount. They named a submarine, a ballistic missile nuclear submarine after him. Robert E. Lee was a general who fought for his state. He was a West Point graduate. He was very well respected on both sides.
Both sides, absolutely was.
But they're trying to remove statues of these individuals, even though they did have a role in American history. And there's a professor, and he's showing how absurd this movement is by issuing basically an edict. His name is Tulane University Dean of Continuing Studies. Richard Marksbury is his name. And he says, hey, we have to take down the statue of Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, Old Hickory.
He said, we have to take down, it's a statue of Andrew Jackson, that he's on horseback, and it has marked the square since 1856. And he really doesn't want to see any statues removed. He's not serious about it, but he's demonstrating how absurd this whole movement is.
Exactly.
So he says that, hey, Jackson owned slaves. Jackson battled against the Seminole Indians in Florida. He ordered the Cherokee Nation onto reservations. Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act. All of these things...
Kicked the Brits' ass.
Kicked the Brits' ass in 1812.
Yep.
Right? All of these things, except for kicking the Brits' ass, although it does technically now they are our allies, right?
Right.
So all of these things...
So it's a hate crime now.
Right.
He's going to be retro-charged with a hate crime against the Brits.
Posthumously. Convicted. Impeached.
And then, and then they'll impeach him posthumously.
So all of these things, he says you have to remove these statues, and it shows how ridiculous this Confederate movement is,
Of course it is.
and to remove these symbols, because you can't judge, and I think this is his point. You can't judge the actions of historical figures through contemporary standards.
Absolutely not.
You
Times
can't
were
do it.
Times were different.
Times were completely
Very
different. Absolutely, times were
You
completely
can't even
different.
judge the 1950s to now. It just doesn't happen. It's unrealistic. What the problems of the day they were dealing with were not the problems now. And to sit
Except
there,
for genocide and,
but to sit there and
but like within our history, right?
To sit there and look back at what somebody did 200 some odd years ago, and the reasons that they did it, and the time and the place and the way the country was and the separation, and you don't realize that the people there, whether true believers or not, did it for the reason of the time. No differently than if there was a incident or a series of incidents or whatever that, look at last year, you had states voting that they would secede from the country, because they were angry over things that are happening in government. It's not all that different.
Look, what if 100 years from now, 200 years from now, somebody realizes that Iran actually destroyed the entire Middle East with nuclear weapons, and there was a statue of Barack Obama as the first black president, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, I don't
I
care.
disagree with the man's policies all day long. I think he is a raging socialist.
Right.
He is a huge progressive.
Give him a library, give him a statue, I could care less.
Right. Look, the man was still president of the United States.
Right.
He was still the first black president of the United States.
Second.
Oh yeah, because Bill Clinton.
Right.
Yeah. He should have a statue.
Well,
He should have a library, right? People should be reminded
of what socialism is. when it gets elected.
is. Thanks for stealing my thunder. But what if somebody decides that he ruined everything, and so they want to remove a statue of him? Or it's absurd to me, and I think that this university professor, again, Richard Marksbury, kudos to him for showing the absurdity of this movement through making this comparison.
Well, and like everything else,
Now, did you know about this?
I did
story?
not, so I'm glad you told me.
Okay.
It's a ridiculously stupid idea. This whole destroy everything that was ever once Confederate is ridiculous. Listen, you can have state heroes, and the things those individuals did as individuals can
Except
be
Margaret
amazing.
Sanger. We need to remove her statues.
Right. Let's get rid of Margaret Sanger's statue.
Because genocide has never been a good idea.
Right. No matter what she says. And there are other people. Listen, if we're going to go off of what offends people, I would say let's outlaw pictures of Che. Let's outlaw
Right.
pictures of Mao.
Right.
Let's make sure nobody ever drives around with a hammer and sickle. All those things offend me.
Right.
And the Cold War is over. Right.
We're about to start the ice war, remember?
Right. We're getting into the ice war, dealing with the real ice hole in Putin.
Right. Yeah, because they're going to have to cut it to see what's in there and
Right.
drill.
And
yeah.
go. So, but all those things offend me because of what they stood for. Mass murder, overthrowing governments. Mao, I can't even count the amount of people that he killed. I don't think
The amount of people?
the amount of people. All those things. All those things offend me. So let's outlaw any. I don't even want to teach about them. How's that?
Let's outlaw everything offensive, period. And that way
Right.
nothing would be legal. Or nothing would be legal. Nothing.
Right, we'd all be in gray suits, walking around in like a pale gray suit.
Gray's offensive because it reminds me of aging.
Ooh, flesh-colored suits.
Yeah, but whose flesh? Like, that has to be all-inclusive.
No, depending on what you can wear, whatever color you want. It's just plain flesh jumpsuit. You remember like the 1970s, like the speed suits they used to call them, that all the guys used to wear that were like just a one-piece zip-up with like the belt that went around their
Yes.
stomach, and 3-inch Italian loafers. Boots, the zip-up sides.
We need some of those jumpsuits.
Everybody has to wear those. I don't care if you're an infant or 95 years old.
Everybody has to have a
would
speed
wear
suit.
speed suit. And flesh tones are the only things allowed. There was that one guy who turned blue. Remember that a couple years ago? He had a skin disease that actually made his skin turn blue.
Really?
So he could sue for discrimination if he had lived. Because if we're all wearing flesh tones, because that's all that's accepted, and there's no blue out there, I wonder if he could be. You'd make a special exception for him. Well, only he can wear blue because it matches his flesh tone. I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah, because otherwise you're not all inclusive, right?
Right, and we have to be. It's about always being all inclusive. It doesn't matter how many people your hero killed. It doesn't matter how your hero impacted or your anti-hero impacted one way or the other. We don't want to learn from history because history's stupid and icky. Let's just talk about now and what we've learned now and not why we know what we know. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The Italian speed suits, baby. I want one anyways. I want one just because.
We should wear that. I move that we wear that to the next Sackhead event.
All right, but I got to grow the mustache.
We get Sackhead speed suits.
Even though I'm not Italian, I'm going to wear it zipped down to my nipples.
Do we get it from the site? I think it's Plaid Stallions.
I'm going to wear it unzipped to my nipples, and I'm going to have that little Italian pepper chain and a couple other ones.
Jumpsuit leisure living.
Oh, yeah. Just look at how comfortable those guys look. It's just heavenly. That I think the Italian boots, you need the whole package. The second best newsman in the business is in the chat room. I bet you Dan back in the day had a speed suit.
I bet you Dan has a speed suit.
Oh, you think he still has a speed suit?
I think he still has a speed suit.
I would love to see if he actually had the speed suit. Oh, man. That is just awesome. We got to take a break.
When we come back, Iran deal.
The Iran deal. It never seems to go away. Right here on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
3445. I got
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
having an
In a
embroidered.
world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. That
But
you
just
didn't build
Sacco's.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid promo.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to the Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show, pricing out speed suits as much as we can and getting ready to call everyone mama. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey there, pretty mama.
Hey there, pretty mama. Does that mean we could bring back like CB radios and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah. And watch nothing but Fall Guy reruns.
Oh, dude, I am there. If it's
anything with Lee Majors?
Oh, yeah. Fall Guy, Dukes of Hazzard,
Chips.
There's some other great shows out there. Oh, gosh, what is it?
Baba Black Sheep.
Baba Black Sheep. No, Chico and the Man.
SWAT.
A-Team, that's another great one.
That was 80s, though.
So was a Fall Guy. Fall Guy was right on the cusp.
Fall Guy was late 70s.
Right on the cusp. No, it was 80s.
Was it?
Yeah. So you have that. There's some great, but that was right in the era, 79, 80, 81. Yeah, there's just some unbelievable
Hill
shows.
Street Blues.
Hill Street Blues, Starsky and Hutch.
Barney Miller. It's a great episode.
Oh man, there's so many. So we're gonna have to all wear our speed suits some night and really have an event. You know what? Maybe election night coverage for next year. Maybe that'll be our election night uniforms, is the speed suits and the Italian loafers. That would be outstanding. No matter where we are, if we're at home, if we do an away game, say down in Texas or whatever, speed suits. Me, you, and we're getting Dan Butcher in a speed suit. He's saying not on our life, but no. Dan is absolutely getting in a speed suit. He's saying bring back disco, baby. I could get some. I listen to ABBA all the time, so yeah, I'm down for it. Oh, man, the Iran deal that never seems to go away. Gosh. So it's not going to go to a vote, which is kind of weird, because you would think that's something that you'd want some sort of affirmative or negative decision by Congress about. You know, it's just
especially since it's a treaty, but nobody will call it a treaty. Right, but it is a frickin' treaty by definition.
You know, it's one of those things.
So the fact that Congress doesn't say, no, this is a treaty, you need 2/3 of our approval, you don't have it, this is no good, and then make the Obama administration take it to court. But they're kind of kowtowing. They're kind of saying, we're not going to hear a debate on it, and we'll vote that this deal is no good, and so we'll send it to you, and if you veto it, well, then I guess it's an okay deal.
No.
Right?
No.
Boner should stand up tall.
Yep. Bitch
McConnell should stand up tall. Boner should get rigid and get hard and say, no, this is a treaty. We'll put it to a vote as a treaty. You need 2/3. You don't have it. It's void.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do to override it.
Right. We deem this a treaty. You can call it whatever you want.
Yes.
I could go outside and call my pickup truck right now a Prius. But in California, that won't qualify me to drive in the super special lane because I don't have the little sticker.
Right.
But no, I think that's like a Prius. It's economical.
For me. For me.
Right, I deem it.
It's not a 68 Delta.
Oh, baby.
Right.
I'm showing up in that. Right to the speed suits.
Right.
Right. But for them to not even have the stones, and listen, bitch and boner, if I'm the leader of conservatives in either the House or the Senate, I want this to go on record.
You just said bitch and boner. I don't know if you noticed that.
I know.
A comma is very important.
Bitch, comma, boner.
Or an and being clearly because if you said bitch and boner, that's a lot different than bitch and boner.
Well, this is very true.
I just want to point that out.
Bitch McConnell.
Okay.
And boner.
Right.
No, I want to have my constituents. I want to have...
Because I don't know if you have a picture that you're looking at on your computer screen where you're like, bitch and boner. I don't know.
But I want to have my people on record to say, no, we deem this a treaty. This is one of the biggest deals that has...
Treaties.
Well, I meant like a big deal like we are. It's a big deal.
Oh, that's because we're not a treaty.
It's a ruckus.
It's a ruckus.
But yes, it is a treaty. It's one of the biggest treaties we have put forth in a long time. We're entering into a treaty with the Islamic State, the Iranian government, the Islamic, whatever they call it, of Iran. But it's the mullahs, and they're bad people. We know they're bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's going to safe and stabilize the region. Bullshit! We know it's not going to stabilize anything.
Right.
We see what happened in North Korea. Is North Korea a stable region right now?
Oh, yeah.
They were about to go to war 3 weeks ago.
They are at war.
Well,
they're always at war.
They were about to rehash it.
No.
You know, we still don't know where their subs
But they
are.
didn't, Sean.
I know, but they didn't. And almost the exact... And the North Koreans got their nukes almost the exact same way the Iranians would get it. You had Clinton go out and give almost the exact same speech that Obama did. Nothing is different. Nothing. So I don't understand why the conservatives don't get a friggin' backbone and step up and take a friggin' vote.
Yep.
And you know what? For the two of them to be little pains in the asses, pansies, I'll say it, pansies.
Pansies.
And not put it on record is ridiculous to me. And think about what a message that sends to your constituents. Because, listen, they've done polls. This isn't exactly a popular deal. So you're sending a message to your constituents. I hear what you're saying. I agree. We're going to vote, and it's going to be on record. And because you don't have the 2/3 to pass it as a treaty, which is why they don't call it a treaty.
Right.
That's exactly why.
Yes.
Because they know they wouldn't have 2/3.
Right.
They know they wouldn't have it.
Right.
So they can't call it a friggin' treaty. So they're going to take this... it's Obamacare all over again. They're just going to call it whatever they want to call it until it gets passed and signed, and then it's law, and then you have to undo it. Well, who's going to undo a nuclear deal? Who's going to undo Obamacare? It sounds... You're taking health care away from all these people. And the same thing with the nuclear deal. You're putting the nukes right in the hands of the Iranians if you try to remove it. So they set it up for failure. And this Congress doesn't have the stones to go out there and say, screw you.
So let me ask you this.
Go.
How was this agreement reached? Just through what? Through what process?
Negotiations.
Okay. And is this agreement, is it oral only? Or is it... How in what form is this agreement?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what happened behind closed doors, and oral may have been involved. With Kerry.
But in terms of
in general, it was written down on paper.
Okay, and was it written down by just citizens of a certain country, or was it written down and negotiated, to use your term, by other people in?
It was negotiated by a group of countries with the country that was the threat.
So with a group of countries, so representatives, political authorities of certain countries. Sovereign nations?
Absolutely sovereign nations.
Okay, so hang on. Let me read the definition here of a treaty.
Oh. It's almost like you were walking me down the road.
Definition, but I didn't. Right? Definition of a treaty. Merriam-Webster, folks. Number 1, the action of treating and especially of negotiating. Number 2, an agreement or arrangement made by negotiation, a contract in writing between two or more political authorities as states or sovereigns, formally signed by representatives duly authorized and usually ratified by the lawmaking authority of the state.
Right, so everything that's going on here, with the exception of the ratification of it.
A document in which a contract is set down. It's a frickin' treaty!
If it walks like a treaty, talks like a treaty, you smack that bitch like a treaty.
It's a treaty.
With the 2/3 vote against.
And bitch McConnell and flaccid Boner won't even have the balls to say treaty, put it to a vote. It's not going to pass with 2/3, and it's therefore not going to go into effect. And there is nothing the Obama administration could do about that.
Exactly.
And then if they try to force it through, no. There's no funding because we have the power of the purse.
Yep.
Poof.
Right? You literally have voters say that.
Poof. Yeah, they want your funding. Take it to the court.
Do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want.
You're not going to find it legal.
But it's not going through. This is a treaty. But the Republican leadership is legitimizing the president's argument and position.
Right.
Even the White House says, no, it's not a treaty, it's an agreement. It's in the frickin' definition.
It literally is the...
This isn't a treaty. Listen, this is a written document that was agreed and negotiated by authorities from various states and sovereign nations and was formally signed, and so it's an agreement. I'd like you to put your definition of Merriam-Webster for treaty.
Yeah,
it's totally different from that. This is like, do you remember in sorry, I'm so fired up right now. So in the movie Interns,
yes,
right, when Vince Vaughn's character is talking about his idea for you take a picture and then you put it on the line. It's there available right away, right? It's online. That's Instagram. No. Instagram is you take a picture, right? Click, and then you put it out there for people to see, right? They comment on it, right? Yeah, that's Instagram. This is totally different. This is you take a picture right now, click, and then you put it on the line. What? They're like, what? That's what he's doing.
Well, and you know, it's just crazy to me that you put it on the line, and it's silly to me that nobody is fighting this as they are. It's silly. Right. It's silly to me that you don't have it. And listen, if I am the leader of the conservatives, and you know what, if I'm the leader of the Democrats too, I want to have something set in stone one way or the other, right? Because 2016 is coming around the corner. These guys are trying to get reelected, some of them. If I'm the Democrats, I want to say I voted for it. So I would be asking for a vote as well. The fact that nobody, well, other than us and some of our dearest friends, but the fact that mainstream media is not making as big of a deal out of the fact that this is actually a treaty is upsetting. They're not doing their job. Most people don't know that it's a treaty, and the ones who do in this country don't understand what you have to do to pass a treaty.
Why aren't the other members saying this?
Weird, right? It's almost like they're all afraid.
All in cahoots.
They're all in cahoots for the money to go poof. And it's sad. I think that we've just lost our way. And listen, a lot of the reason there's not enough outrage about the people, for the people, is a lot of people don't know what it takes to pass a treaty or accept a treaty. They just think that the president can sign whatever treaty they want. And it's really funny, though, because when Congress tried to pass the something with, what was it, Israel last year, and they kept trying to say it was a treaty and that it wasn't approved and blah, 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 blah. They had no problem talking about what a treaty was then. And I can't even I can't remember what it was. I wish it was a letter or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and they kept trying to say it was a treaty because they were reaching out to a foreign government to negotiate. And they kept trying to say it was a treaty, and it wasn't initiated by the executive. And I don't remember the specifics, but they had no problem talking about right then and there what a treaty was. But now they don't want to talk about it, which is ridiculous. And again, at the end of the day, and Agador's in the chat room nails it perfectly. What we're worried about rhetoric in this country and rigmarole and who's going to get reelected and who's not going to get reelected, we still have our allies in Israel that no matter what happens has to live with the outcome.
So that's absolutely correct. And here's the thing. Look, the Federalists actually dealt with the treaty issue also. It was the Federalist number 75. And what it said, it basically says, look, the constitutional requirement that the Senate approves a treaty with 2/3 means that successful treaties must gain support that overcomes partisan division. The 2/3 requirement adds to the burdens of the Senate leadership and may also encourage opponents of a treaty to engage in a variety of tactics in hopes of obtaining sufficient votes to ensure its defeat. The Senate does not ratify treaties. The Senate approves or rejects a resolution of ratification. This is from the Senate's website.
Well, yeah, but
the United States Senate website, if you go to treaties and click on it, they quote Article 2, Section 2 of the United States Constitution, and they quote Federalist Number 75.
You're assuming they read that.
It's on their freaking website.
We have stuff on our website that you've never read.
This is true. This is true.
Some of it you wrote.
So I know. Doesn't mean I have to read it again.
Exactly. But, oh, gosh. It's just frightening to me. And at the end of the day, it's all political jargon and political tap dancing at the expense of our friend Israel. And look at, like I said before, it's not like Iran is going to be this little island nation all by themselves who has no ability to develop a nuke. No, there's all these countries that want to help them out and make money off of it and want them to have it.
Right.
And so it's absolutely frightening. And, Dan was joking in the chat room, but he said, Obama and Kerry said it's not a treaty, so we should trust their judgment, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya with James Taylor. Yes, and we will also have to do that with Israel after Iran drops a nuke. We better send James Taylor over there to sing because it's going to be disastrous. And here's the funniest part is to destroy Israel, they don't need a lot of nuclear fuel, as firefighters call it. Sorry.
It's grass. It's fuel.
It's fuel.
It's fuel.
So sick of seeing that on TV. I don't care what's on fire. When they call it fuel, I just giggle.
Go rescue a cat. And cook a tri-tip.
But reality is what it is. That the fact that we're enabling, it's going to be 10, 15 years down the line before they can do any sort of nuclear weapons. Yeah, and you're not going to be the president when Iran falls. Or, I'm sorry, when Israel falls.
Right.
You've literally kicked this down the road, and that's only if it actually takes them that long. And the Ayatollah sent out a tweet today, and this is exactly what he said, and thank you to Dan for posting this. Don't say I did not warn you that we intend to take Israel sometime in the next 25 years. That was sent today by the Ayatollah of Iran in a tweet.
And these lawmakers are still,
Oh, no, we can trust them. Oh, come on, they're just spouting off. They've only been spouting it off and trying to kill them since they've took power in, 76, 78?
Yeah.
They fund Hezbollah and Hamas to regularly attack Israel.
Yes.
You don't think that these a-holes are going to do it?
Yes.
You're out of your mind.
Yes.
If they could get through their air defense systems, they would have attacked them already. It's ridiculous. It's sad. It's an afterthought. But we've been set up for this, right, by this administration. Look at, before they even started negotiations of this treaty, look at the view that this administration has put on Israel. Look at how they've tried to twist Israel, 79, thanks, Dave, into this monster. And when they were in the war with Palestine last year, we asked them to hold back and go easy and blah, 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 blah. Why don't you friggin' ask Palestine to stop throwing rockets at them?
Right.
Everybody wants to point as Israel as the aggressor in the region. Meanwhile, they wouldn't bother anybody if nobody bothered them. But when they defend themselves, everyone goes batshit crazy over it.
Yep.
So how do you think, and I can tell you already, how do you think the world will react when Israel puts planes in the skies and bombs their nuke facilities?
Oh, they'll go nuts.
Right. How dare they? They're just destroying the electricity of those poor people. We had a treaty. Nobody's ever broke a treaty before.
Oh, you didn't have a treaty because it didn't get ratified by Congress.
It'll be called a treaty then.
Oh.
We had an agreement with those people. That's an IOU. That's as good as money. It's just insane. But nobody wants to deal with the problem. And I hate to say it, Iran isn't even the problem in this right now. It's our own government. It's our Congress for not taking the president to task, and it's the president and Lurch for not doing this the right way. And giving everything up to get... They never even tried to get anything. Listen, if we walked away and essentially this treaty was they can pursue small nuclear power. However, anything over this number, we bomb them. And that's in the treaty. And there's no United Nations interference. There's no IAEA. Nobody can stop that. They've signed it. We've signed it. Everyone's happy. So they want nuclear power on a small level. We're going to allow them 4 centrifuges and 1 power center because that's all they really need in their Greater Tehran area.
Have you noticed that even some of the Democrats that have said that they're going to support this deal, they've kind of added little caveats to their support?
I'll support this if
we have reservations.
Well, yeah,
right, like Senator Casey.
Yeah,
we have deep reservations. Are you saying that to give yourself an out later on?
Oh, of course.
When this goes sideways, well, I supported it because I actually wanted to trust him, but I said at the time I had deep reservations.
Right. You know who else has deep?
If you have frickin' deep reservations, then don't support it.
First of all, reservation's something you make at a restaurant.
Right.
You have friggin' problems.
You got problems.
You know, let's stop being cute
and apparently Iran ain't one.
You get 99 problems, but Iran ain't one.
You got 99 problems, and bitch McConnell ain't one either. So I guess a bitch ain't one. Because he's going right along with you guys.
And there's 100 in the Senate.
Right. Right. You see my ironicy. Ironicy is a word I just made up.
99 problems, and Iran ain't one. Oh, man. So we'll monitor this, but you know what? Congress needs to stone up. They need to allow their nuts to drop. And if they don't have nuts, they weren't born without them. They need to, whatever it is that drops. Something needs to drop, and you need to stand up and do your friggin' job. Speaking of, and I think 99 problems and a bitch ain't one, I believe that was Kanye who wrote that, if I'm not mistaken. Did you hear he's going to run for president in 2020?
Oh, good.
He posted that or alluded to that on some talk show.
He's an asshole, isn't he?
He's such an ass. But immediately, and of course the internet responds amazingly, as they always do, which, as much as I get angry with certain things on the internet, when something like that happens, you always have those people like, yeah, Kanye 2020, but the people who absolutely understand the ridiculousness of the statement and exploit it just make me so happy. Somebody immediately put Kanye's face on President Macho Camacho from the movie Idiocracy. And it was everywhere, and so many campaign quotes, and so it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
That's great.
If you haven't seen the movie Idiocracy, you've seen it.
Yeah.
It's essentially it's Maya Rudolph and Luke Wilson, and they get put in these time capsules. She goes in by accident. He gets put in. She goes in because she's trying to outrun her pimp, which is exactly why she volunteers. But the time capsule opens 45 years in the future, 50 years in the future, and we've dumbed ourselves down so much that we have an MMA fighter for president. Nothing grows because we keep trying to feed all of our plants Gatorade.
Gatorade's got the nutrients you need. Oh, right.
It's get the things that plants love.
Right.
Starbucks has completely changed the way they do business. But my favorite part of that movie, well, there's actually a lot of great parts, but everyone's just like a dumb redneck, essentially. But one of my favorite parts
What's wrong with rednecks?
They drive to Costco, or they take the train to Costco, and Costco is like a city size. It's so big that a plane crashed into some of it, and the rest of it was still open. And not a little plane, like a full-size, like 747 or something like that. You can get your law degree at Costco. It's just, if you haven't seen the movie Idiocracy, it was made about 15 years ago, sit down. It's funny, but at the beginning they explain the dumbing down of the nation, and that's really where we're headed in this country. It's sad. It's almost like a prophecy in a really sad sort of way. Welcome to Starbucks. Would you like a latte and a tug job?
Rondo. Rondo has what plants need.
Well, you got to put water on that stuff. The stuff in the toilet? It's just so awesome.
Do you know what Brondo has in it? Yeah. It has what plants need.
I like money. Classic movie.
The Thirst Mutilator.
The Thirst Mutilator. And then the president was President Camacho, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Thirst Mutilator.
Oh, yeah. Idiocracy. Oh, man. So we get a...
Do you know Brondo has its own website?
Does it really?
Oh, yeah.
There's one scene, and I won't explain it, but at one point... Oh, dude, that's awesome! What's the website?
Brondo.com.
BRONDO.com.
BRAWNDO.
Oh, BRAWNDO.com. One of my favorite parts of that film is when he's sentenced to death, and he has to drive, and it's a demolition derby. Mm-hmm. Only he's in this little Volkswagen Bug, and he's going up against like 4 monster trucks. But they put an appendage on the front of the Bug that just... I watched that scene over and over again and laugh hysterically. And if you have to see the movie, it'll actually give you a little bit of a spine tingle. Like, it'll make you a little nervous as to where we're headed. But it really... Brondo has the stuff that plants need. It's good nutrients. And you look at now with all the monster and the power... And this was 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So you look at the power drinks that are out there now, 5 Hour Energy, Monster, blah, 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 blah. It's not that far away. It really isn't. It's scary.
This website is just ridiculous. It has ridiculous headings, like Brondo sponsored hamster to run across the United States. Hamsters are good at running. The only thing that makes them win at running is Brondo. It's got what hamsters crave.
We're up against a break. When we come back, oh man, they're already rushing into Syria. And more bad puns right here on the Sackheads Radio Show, live on the SHR Media Network.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cough was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific from me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to the Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. Finally made it back. Whew. You know, without Sacco, I feel like I'm doing all the work. And I don't like that feeling. We don't like that feeling.
Right.
Sorry, Goose. But I do. I want to point out something.
Yes.
Today marked, like, Queen Elizabeth of England's. She essentially became the longest standing ruler. And hats off to her. And I actually like the Queen. World War II vet. Kind of a badass.
Vet actually fought.
Yeah. She actually did some cool things over her years. One of my favorite is a couple in England sent her a wedding invitation as kind of a joke. Like, hey, and she showed up. She's got a good sense of humor. She's witty. I think she's a good person. She did a lot to free a lot of countries that were under England's rule. Lots of countries, actually. Millions of people that she allowed their own sovereignty. And some of them so much that they even chose to keep her as the head of state in their country.
She's also the head of armed forces and head of the Church of England.
Yes.
Kind of like a pope.
Kind of.
Like
in her own way.
Like a puppet.
Yeah. And the, even Scotland, when they were trying to pass their referendum last year, said that if they seceded from England, they would still keep her as the head of state. So, it shows you the respect that, and rightfully so, she deserves. And I did some research. And I found some facts that I didn't know, and some of them are a little outlandish, but some of them are I think pretty close to real. So, and of course, I got this from a website called The Chive, but it's tweets hashtagged Queen facts. Most people don't know is the real Queen actually, according to this tweet, died in the 60s and was replaced, and it can only be revealed if you play the British national anthem backwards. She wasn't always destined to be queen, but in 1946, her owner gave her a sock, and she was freed from being in the House of Elves. 1 year, did you know this, Clint? When Roger Taylor from Queen came down with appendicitis, he was the drummer. She actually played drums on and filled in for them, including playing Fat Bottom Girls. She's credited on that track as Liz Taylor. That's pretty impressive. She's got so many ribbons. She now slices strands of fabric on instinct and must be restrained from her staff. Well, after you do that, your body just starts to do things automatically. Without her white gloves, completely adhesive. She'll stick to anything. So she has to wear them. Her digestive system is a completely complex system of 4 stomachs and can completely digest a diamond. After she will sleep for up to 6 days. The Queen likes to hold... I didn't know this, but it must be cute and adorable to see. The Queen actually holds out her crown to Prince Charles, and just before he grabs it, she likes to swipe it away, and then they all laugh for hours. And
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can actually see that one.
Yeah, she's mischievous. She likes to have a little bit of fun. She's got a good sense of humor. She's actually 2 separate queens stacked on top of each other, and they rotate who gets to be the head every couple years. I'm not going to read that one. Did you know the Queen actually thinks that Prince Charles is too quote-unquote street in order to be king?
Okay.
He's pretty ghetto at times.
A little bit, yeah.
So this one, and this is something I really want to try someday. If you're able to catch the Queen in a salt circle on a full moon, she'll actually grant you 3 wishes. She does have magic abilities, so that's kind of
cool. Which is why she's remained in power for so long, I think.
She's one of the only people on the planet that can actually break a swan's arm, which most people don't even know where the swan's arm is.
But she does.
She does, right.
Right. She rides a unicorn. The only person known to have ridden or seen a unicorn.
And this one, you know what? They documented it, and it was such a tawdry movie, but only a few people saw it. But it was when the Queen had that little out-of-marriage romance with Leslie Nielsen.
Right.
Where, yeah,
right.
They were caught on tape, and it was near in California at an A's game, or just before an A's game. So
of course, because good things happen at A's games.
So a little bit of drama in the long tenure.
Leslie Nielsen. Was that the first Naked Gun?
That was the first Naked Gun. That was absolutely incredible.
With Priscilla Presley. Nice beaver. Thanks, I recently had it stuffed.
But, you know, seriously, hats off to the Queen. I hope she continues being healthy and really a great person. If you've ever read her history, especially World War II, she was never meant to be queen. A lot of weird things did happen.
Was the movie Elizabeth about her?
Good call. Good job. See? I didn't know you was keeping up on your Queen Elizabeth history.
Oh, yeah.
But she's really... England has changed so much under her rule, coming out of World War II, where they were still rationing when she came to power, to being prosperous. Not everything was great. There was a lot of conflict. There was a lot of war. A lot of infighting, of course, the death of Diana and other people, and she's always dealt with it with integrity and grace. And there's a reason why there are people all over and it's funny, the generation before us, and so on and so forth, when they really saw her in her heyday, my mother, my grandparents, a lot of people, and of course my relatives immigrated through Canada, from Ireland and Wales. So to hear them talk about the Queen and how gracious she was and the things that she's done and how intelligent, what a good leadership, and even in times of tragedy, when you talk about the 7/7 attacks years ago in England and other incidents, and just she's been that stabilizing force, and really it says a lot for her. So I wish her well, all jokes aside, and I hope she continues to be healthy.
And she is the head of the armed forces.
Yeah, she doesn't screw around.
No, the Queen is so, and I think she can dissolve. Can she dissolve Parliament? Does she have the power to dissolve Parliament?
I believe so.
I think she does, but how awesome is that, right? The Queen, like, Parliament can do all this stuff,
and you're out.
But I control the military.
And you're out. And I'll tell you what, there's it's really a trend, and I didn't know this, and I read this somewhere, and it's really a trend. Apparently, there's like 20 to 24-year-olds of certain ways in America that apparently have crushes on her, and it's called queening, I believe. So that's something that needs...
No, that was a band, right?
No.
That was something else. The Supreme Court ruled on that recently?
That was something totally different.
Was it?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
Speaking of which...
Because I Googled queening, but I have Safe Search off, and something completely different came up.
Did you know, and through all the research I did when I was reading about the Queen today, and I actually did research about it today, but... when I was reading about this, what I didn't know is before Princess Diana died, when she was younger, do you know Freddie Mercury from Queen? And I love the band Queen. They're just an awesome band. Actually dressed her up like a dude one night and took her out clubbing.
No, they didn't.
It's all over the place that Freddie Mercury absolutely did that, because he did have a good relationship with Diana, and she was known to sneak out and have fun.
Really?
So yeah, it would not shock me. I mean, it's like everything else. It could be an urban legend. But there was a lot of stories and a lot of people that said it absolutely happened, including, I think, Brian May from Queen, the guitarist for Queen, substantiated it. So, his preferences aside, Freddie Mercury was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was crazy. He loved to have fun. He was an amazing singer.
Mm-hmm.
One of the few extremely unattractive human beings that can front a major rock band and still be some sort of symbol.
And Mick Jagger.
Yeah, Mick Jagger. Yeah, I'll never understand that. But yeah, so that was one of the funny things that I thought that would be
Look, speaking of queens and unattractive front men, I want to talk about Putin.
Great segue.
Thanks. So, Russia is continuing to build up their military forces in Syria, and this is obviously causing some concern here in the U.S. The Iranian deal doesn't, apparently, but this buildup does. And they're looking. There are several Russian AN-124 Condor cargo planes that have been landing,
which are enormous.
They're ridiculously large. Yep. And they've been landing in Syria, and they've been offloading troops, Russian Marines, armored vehicles, and equipment. And there's a huge buildup. And the thought is that they're there to support Assad's forces.
Of course they are. They've come out and admitted to it as of today. They're fighting terrorism.
Yeah, Russia's not denying the military buildup at all, which is unprecedented.
It's enormous. And,
of course, again, Russia's not denying it at all. But Syria has been involved in a civil war. Well, everybody remembers Obama's red line, which he did nothing about. And they're saying that they're fighting Islamist militants.
Right. Which they consider to be the rebels and anyone that doesn't fall under the Assad government.
Yeah, Russians have they've built 100 additional housing units along in a coastal city by the Mediterranean. There's evidence that Russian troops are engaging in combat. Over there.
There was a video that came out a couple days ago that showed Syrian forces being supported by Russian armor. Mm-hmm. And there was Russian being plainly spoken on the video between soldiers of the Russians and the Syrians. So, absolutely, there's no questions right now. There's no anything about why or if the Russians are actually on the ground fighting there, which is kind of amazing, in my opinion, because it's not just an advisory role. You know, you could
they're fighting.
They're full on fighting, right? With the Ukraine and Crimea, they said that one of their biggest statements for a long time is if we have members of our military there, they're strictly as an advisory role. This is totally different. This is full on combat. They're actually engaging what they deem to be the enemy, and they're taking a very active role in it, which further solidifies that relationship. And listen, Russia can't let Cyprus fall militarily, Syria fall because of the base. They have that base there that's strategic to them. They have a lot of military.
They need Assad in power.
They need it,
which this administration has said, we don't want Assad in power, but nothing else will be done about that.
Well, they don't want Assad in power, but remember Pelosi going over there and making out with him. Well, that's
weird. An unconfirmed report that she was actually making out with him.
Well, I just meant politically.
Oh,
yeah, which is kind of funny because I thought it was illegal for members of Congress to go over and try to push. Well, that's neither here nor there. It's all right when she did it. Which it's probably the only woman that Assad probably didn't hook up with, because even he was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Pardon. So you start getting into this, but it also shows that Russia's starting to branch out even more. And that military might that it used to have when it was the former Soviet Union spread throughout the world. And you know, we had the Russian sub off the coast of our country. Not the Russian sub, the Russian spy ship recently off the coast of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, that area. We knew it was in port. We have them being active up at the North Pole. We obviously, Assad quote, no, I actually prefer a goat. That's according to Egg. I wasn't there for it, so I don't know. I don't remember how it happened, but you have Russian forces up at the North Pole. You have, obviously, what's going on in the Ukraine with Crimea. Russia's still building up forces. Everything.
And this almost looks like the Crimea all over again.
Exactly.
Right?
Except this time, they're working on the sitting government. And listen, Syria is a disgusting situation. There's no win for us. There's no win for peace in Syria. It doesn't matter who comes into power.
Nope.
You know, you could have the argument, much like Saddam Hussein, that some people had said, well, he kept the region from going crazier than what it was. He ruled with an iron fist, but that really wasn't our problem. I do have that conversation. I may not 100% agree when it comes to Saddam Hussein as much as Bashar Assad, but the simple fact of the matter is there's no win there, but Russia needs Syria to win. They need the Assad government to remain in power militarily, and they're going to absolutely dump as much resources to secure that as possible. I bet you see full-on Russian brigades running through there soon. Absolutely Russian brigades. They need that. That sub-base, that ship base that they have in Cyprus is so important to them to extend that reach that the Russians are begging to get back.
So, do you think it's possible that with the Russian assistance in Syria, do they allow Assad to stay in power?
Oh, yeah.
Or do they set up a Russian puppet government? Or is Assad the Russian puppet government?
I was going to say, it's already been set up.
Because they're going to help him win.
Right. They just want to keep their marionette in power.
Right.
They pull the strings. They've been pulling the strings for years. Assad knows that, which is why do you think Russia was so quick to go in and handle the chemical weapons with Assad? They already had the chemical weapons. It was theirs to begin with. And it made them look good. So Russia, and it's funny because Dave just pointed this out in the chat room, Russia's been a mess for 30 years. Absolutely, since the fall of the Soviet
Union.
It's weird how that kind of works, right? But
they're up and coming.
Well, yeah. But when the Soviets controlled it, and they did, they controlled it with an iron fist, and nobody dared. And then the Soviet Union fell, and Russia was weak for a long time, and Assad was able to kind of do his own thing. And because he's such a puppet, he has no idea what he's doing as a head of state, and it fell into more and more turmoil. And here we are. And listen, it's not like Assad was all of a sudden a bad guy in the last 5 years. He's been a scumbag his entire life. It's just now more visible. And so Russia had no choice as Russians to try to maintain that state to go in there right now and kind of regulate, if you will.
Not regulate, take action.
Well, regulate. Yeah, regulate. They need that. To them, that's regulate, right? You got to push down any of the terrorists that are in there, the Free Syrian Army, all that stuff. You need to squash them if you're Russia because you need to maintain that. So you need to regulate.
I think, I don't know. I just got hung up on your term regulate, I think, because that almost seems like maintain the status quo, keep it going. But I think it's more they need that civil war to stop.
Yes. Because they need to operate. And they can't operate while it's under a civil war.
Right. And what do they need that base for? Right? To maintain their global influence or to exert global influence at a greater scale than they have been able to do for the past 30 years or so. Well, again, it just goes back to Putin again trying to expand that Russian influence, the Russian sphere of influence.
Well, and Syria has
and go back to the way the former Soviet Union ran.
Well, exactly, and he's getting the band back together again. And he's all the states that they once had strong rule over partnerships.
Which blues brother is he? He's trying to put the band back together again.
And what does Syria have that Russia needs greatly? Oil. They produce oil. They're an oil-producing company, our country. And right now, guess who? And it's funny because who just took over those oil fields? The last one was just taken over. Oh, by ISIS in the last 2 days. So you're going to see Russian forces. They need that oil.
Look, I don't mind Russia fighting ISIS.
I don't mind it either.
And that's kind of the catch-22, right?
Yeah.
I don't mind Russia fighting ISIS, but they're selective on where they fight ISIS.
Well, yeah. They don't care about the rest of the region unless it affects them. If ISIS shows up in Iran, you damn skippy, Putin's going to be in Iran kicking ass and taking names. And listen, they may not have the equipment that they want right now, but Russia's still a very able military.
Oh yeah, they have ballistic missile subs, nuclear subs. They have plenty of air power. I mean, look how many Bear bomber flights the Tu-95s fly by Alaska, by California, around Guam. I mean, they have military hardware capable of delivering really powerful ordnance. So I think they're a huge threat. Now they're doing joint exercises with China, and I mean they're developing.
They're getting the access
rapidly.
to people again.
Absolutely.
And you start looking back. You start looking all the countries that have allegiance to Russia, and all of them have allegiance for the same reason, right? Russia gives them weapons to a point. They sell Russia oil or give Russia money for their equipment and allow Russia to spread and move their military in. If you're, I have said this for a long time, I guarantee you Russia goes to North Korea to test a lot of things secretly because so little is known in there and they know they can. That partnership is always going to be there. Russia and China now.
Look, Russia has been stepping up its military spending at a great degree. During this same period, NATO members are scaling back a lot of their budgets. Moscow's relationship with us is at its worst as it has been before the Soviet Union collapsed.
Right.
They're developing new military hardware. They have the new Armata battle tank, which is one of the world's most advanced tanks. It's expected to be in service by the year 2020. I mean, it's ridiculous. They have a new self-propelled artillery piece, which already showed up in the May Day parade, the 2S-35. So developing that. NATO has a similar weapon, but it's not as advanced. They have a new battle rifle, the AK-12 Kalashnikov, that fires it fires a 5.45 millimeter round. It can be converted to take the 7.62 round, just like the previous Kalashnikov designs. They have a new fighter, the Su-35.
Right, they have the Su-35.
It's expected to enter service this year. Of course, our new jet is the F-35.
Well, that's not the only one.
But ours is slower and has a shorter range than the Su-35.
And that's not even the Pack. The Pack is the one that's very much like the Lightning. That's the one they're developing with Pakistan.
There's a new aircraft carrier
that's being
that's going to be in service. There's the Mi-28 Havoc attack helicopter. Which is their new attack helicopter. Strangely, it looks a lot like the
Apache.
Yeah. There's the Tu-160M, which is being modernized, which looks very similar to the U.S. B-1 bomber. So they're developing
bold future. But the other thing they're doing is they're adding infantry, they're adding soldiers, one right after another, and they're really setting it up, aren't they? I mean, if you look at this, it doesn't take a genius to see. And you can talk all the time. And again, the same thing we see with Iran that we kind of see with Putin. Nobody's taking it seriously, or at least not on the forefront.
Right.
I know we talked last week about Obama did a little something with Russia, nothing really serious, but kind of gave the FU a little bit because you almost have to. And Ag points it out perfectly. They're modernizing, we're weakening.
We are, and that's what I was talking about when I said NATO countries as a whole have been really scaling back their defense spending. And now there's reports that the Russian defense industry has developed a directed energy weapon.
Really?
Yeah. This from a July 7th, 2015 article by John Keller. That's through Military Air and Space Electronics through that website. And they report that the Russian defense industry reportedly has developed a direct energy weapon that can destroy or disable sophisticated electronic guidance and navigation systems in both manned and unmanned aircraft and precision-guided missiles.
Huh.
It can take out GPS navigation signals, radio communications equipment, and even orbiting satellites.
So it's an EMP, essentially.
Kind of, but it's
directed EMP.
Basically, yeah.
So all these things that the Russians are doing, and we're scaling back. We talked about the icebreakers last week. We talked about so many other things, and you're looking for them to get. They're looking to get resources, right? Because you can't run a big military without resources. we, and like you said, other NATO countries are drawing back so much. And the funniest part is it's always because we try to meet something. Oh, well, it's the arms agreement of blah, 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 blah. Or, the United Nations did a study that we're so militarily heavy that blah, blah, blah. I talk about this when I talk about the budget in this country. Yes, we need to cut the budget. Yes, we need to do some things. But, military is always one of the last things I want to cut just because of the threat. They're there as a last resort, but they need to be there and ready. Look at what happened when Iraq really, really beefed up. And we had to put the surge on. We had to get into a ground war. And we didn't have enough troops. We had to start. We had enough troops in the military, but they weren't trained ready to go.
No.
And we have even less now.
We do. Putin also announced that Russia is going to be adding 40 new ICBMs to its nuclear arsenal this year.
Well, I'm sure that's fine.
On top of the 50 that they already have.
You only need one.
Mm-hmm. Putin spoke about this when he gave his opening speech at the Army 2015 Expo.
Oh, nice.
So this year, he basically said that the missiles are part of an extensive program that he's using in order to modernize his country's military. And he boasted that they would, quote, overcome even the most technically advanced anti-missile defense systems.
I'm sure it's all for peaceful purposes. Vlad is just a guy.
No, because then it wouldn't need to overcome advanced anti-missile defense systems, right?
You don't know that, Clint. You're making an assumption
true.
based on logic.
He wants to add 50 more nuclear missiles in 2015, which is coming to a close here, and then add 40 more on top of that.
As of right now,
Well, we're not at war. Sorry, we're not.
We're not at war.
That was a Russian translation of something. I don't
know what it was.
What that was?
I'm sure it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
We're gonna take a break. When we come back here on the Sackheads Radio Show, we'll talk a little bit about Hilda Beast. No, wait. That's
the
what that
Hilda
says.
Beast.
Hillary Clinton, sorry. I always get those two confused right here on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cough with a stupid promo.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific from me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
If our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to the Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And welcome back to the SHR Media Network. This is the Sackheads Radio Show, part 4 of 4 for this evening, the 9th of September 2015. Thank you so much for sticking around. We love having you. You know, I'm almost sick and tired of talking about Hillary. And I know we have to, but I really, it's getting to the point with her that I don't want to talk about her until she's, in handcuffs. Is that so wrong? I don't want to talk about her until something's actually done. And I know, listen, we talked just at the end of the show last week that her her State Department employee who installed her personal server at her house pled the Fifth. I immediately said that I think he's looking for immunity because he knows bad things are coming. And plead the Fifth and then have them reach out to you and cut a deal. She said this week that she was sorry. I'm really sorry I kept that private.
That was a half-assed apology. Give me a break.
That was like telling somebody you're sorry you made out with their daughter, right? You get caught in the backseat of the car and Dad comes out and knocks on the window and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry that happened. You're not sorry that it happened. You're sorry that you got caught.
Right.
And that's the difference. And even when she said it, it was almost like a trailing thought. Like somebody was like she had a bug in her, like a microphone or a speaker in her ear, and she was like, blah, 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 blah. Don't forget to say sorry. Oh, and yeah, sorry about the whole computer server thing. I'm Hillary Clinton. Vote for me. I kick ass and take names. And I'm in touch with the middle class. And I haven't bought myself a gallon of milk in 35 years. But I know what you guys are going through. I know the fight you're in. I know that Black Lives Matter. I know that guns are bad. We have to stop gun violence, even though I'm protected by guys with guns 24/7, but that's silly. So those are just ridiculous, et cetera, et cetera. She actually said this in her speech, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, while she was texting Bill's handler to make sure that he had his pants on. All of that is unconfirmed, but most likely true.
Right.
It seems very reasonable. Listen, she's just so out of touch with reality. I had this argument with somebody the other night. There is a possibility that she doesn't honestly think that she did wrong. Because she's just so jaded, and she lives in such a bubble of, well, why can't I do this? I'm Hillary Clinton. Why is this? This can't be illegal. I'm doing it. It's almost like Nixon.
Yeah, she apologized, but she's but how many times did she say I was allowed to do it?
Right. Oh, no, she's pushing the blame. She's not taking responsibility.
I could do it. I didn't break any rules. I'm sorry, but I didn't break any rules. I was allowed to do it.
Well, and it's almost like I was allowed to in the sense of, they told me I could. I mean, they said it was okay. Well, that doesn't matter. It's still a law. The law can't be superseded by somebody saying, this is okay.
And if the State Department gave her permission, wasn't she the freaking head of the State Department?
Well,
so did she give herself permission? Has anybody clarified this?
It was like a Stuart Smalley moment where she was sitting in front of a mirror, which, by the way, those two look a lot alike.
They do. If you're the Secretary of State, who's going to give you permission?
The Secretary of State. I have this handwritten letter from the Secretary of State allowing me to do this.
Right.
It almost reminds... Do you remember you brought up Do earlier? You remember Hot Shots Part Do?
Yes.
Where they were sent in, and the great Lloyd Bridges, one of the funniest men ever. Airplane alone sums it up. But he gives them the official document to tell the other commander that he's out, and all it says is, you're out there in Tug Benson. And that's all I can think of in that situation is Hillary had a note from herself, and she was like, this is okay now. Oh, all right, well, I see you endorsed this right here, so that's fine. I just feel like she is so narcissistic and she lives in such a bubble that she doesn't even maybe understand it.
I don't think she thinks the rules apply to her.
It's almost sociopathic, right?
The rules don't apply to me.
Right.
They apply to everybody else. I'm part of the ruling class. The rules don't apply to me.
Right. I'm part of the ruling class and I rule.
Right.
It's insane. And I think that's something that I'm hoping this country starts to understand when you have these long political families, Jeb Bush, and others who stay in power in some way, shape, or form for years, and their whole life is just politics, and they're in power in said politics, that they have no idea what reality is anymore.
And not only that, but look at the recent polls that are coming out that describe her as a liar, untrustworthy, dishonest,
all of which true,
criminal,
true.
Like all of these words in these polls are defining her. Yet, how is she still the Democratic frontrunner?
Well, Democrats are idiots. That's the easiest way to put it. They have nobody else. They have nobody else. The best they can dig up is this being who is potentially a criminal, who's deemed untrustworthy. This broad, who's untrustworthy, potentially a criminal, has done a ton of shady crap in the past, and that's all the Democrats have. That's it. There's nothing else out there. Even if Joe throws his name in the ring, as much as I hope Joe goes a long way, I don't think they have anything. So they have to keep putting their eggs in her womb, if you will, because they have nothing else. And they know they have nothing else.
Did you see what David Axelrod tweeted out?
No.
David Axelrod tweeted out, today's @New York Times story on HRC read more like The Onion. Her detailed plan to show more authenticity and spontaneity.
Wow. Spontaneity. The problem is, I think spontaneity with Hillary is usually evil.
That's great.
Like, I don't think that she could be spontaneous in a fun way, but I think when it comes time to hand an ass kick in a bill, he doesn't even see it coming.
Right.
You know what I mean? The problem is I feel like that would be the same when it comes time for a lot of things in this country. She lives in a mental bubble. She lives in a realistic or a literal bubble. She hasn't had to do anything she's been in government in one shape or form since the 60s. Her first job, she was removed from the Nixon investigation for being deemed, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't untrustworthy. It was something else. He essentially said, yeah, you're doing crap just to make crap happen.
Right.
She was making things up. And that's how. And then you look at the Saul Alinsky rules for radicals. Just keep saying something until it's true. She lives by that. She wasn't an Alinsky-ite. She was Alinsky. Hell, I guarantee you that she probably had some sort of illicit activity with Alinsky. She was into the man.
Or he was into her. We don't know.
How's that, Bill? Which could be why Bill is how he is. I didn't even think about this. Her actions could have forced this, right?
Right.
I mean, really, I'm not trying to make an excuse for the man, but it could be there. So you look at Hillary, you look at everything that she's done up until this point, you look at all the polls, you look at the potential criminal activity, all the omissions, her saying sorry, which, by the way, I thought when you apologize for something, it's because you did it. You don't say sorry for something you didn't do. That would be crazy. You can't just come out and be like, oh, yeah, hey, you know what? That'd be like me apologizing for an Alaskan oil spill. Hey, guys, I'm really sorry. I didn't. They allowed me to create an oil spill. I knew nothing about it, did nothing to cause, but I'm still very, very sorry for it. Well, wait, were you in Alaska when it happened? No. Did you have anything to do with the oil company? No.
I hate environmentalists, therefore.
Did you design the part that failed? No, but I just want to apologize for it.
I don't like environmentalists, so therefore I must have.
Right,
I'm apologizing.
But that's seriously where she's at right now. When you're saying I'm apologizing for something I didn't do, that's quite literally what she's doing.
The apology was because the people wanted. Her handlers said, "You need to apologize."
This will look good if you say this. Okay, and I'm sure she didn't want to.
Oh, gosh, no.
Can you imagine that conversation? Listen, Mrs. Clinton, we've been kind of rolling it around and based on the polls and everyone thinking you're a criminal and you do things illegally because you're Hillary Clinton, all this stuff. We think you may want to throw out a little sorry. No. Just, can you hint at it? Just be like, listen, if there was any wrongdoing. No. Okay, how about this? mention these words in the same paragraph. Computer, server, and sorry. No. Okay. And that's really, that's how she thinks. That's who she is. And I say it all the time.
I was allowed. I don't have to apologize for something I was allowed to do.
Right. She doesn't want to serve as president to serve the people. She doesn't want to serve as president, in my opinion, to serve the nation.
I think she wants the power.
It's all about
It's
power.
all about her.
It's all about power.
Yep.
Crony politicians that the left loves to rail about, that's your Democratic frontrunner right now. The croniest politician out there.
Did you say ball of tissue? Or politician? I love how I made you laugh as you try to take a big drink of water.
Ball of tissue, politician. Same thing, really. Right? There's no difference. Here's a crony ball of tissue. We should write that one down, ball of tissue. So, it's an apology that wasn't, and I'm hoping the investigation, who has their best men on it.
The A-Team.
The A-Team. Dun, 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 dun.
Which one is Bill?
No, the A-Team's the FBI team.
Oh.
If the head of that team doesn't show up in a rubber Godzilla costume smoking a cigar, he doesn't have a sack.
Oh yeah, and driving a black van with a red stripe.
Who are these guys? Well, it's pretty obvious they're the A-Team, isn't it?
Right. They're doing the investigation. Joy.
I can see them testifying on the stand.
Where'd you guys get the van? Homeland Security money.
Homeland Security money. I just picture like one of the investigators on the stand and the defense attorney or the prosecutor saying, so Mr. Baracus, Agent Baracus, when you were
Baracus,
when you were scanning the server, did you find any classified information? I pity the fool that tries to hide information from me. Which is the whole speech has to be done that way. The whole I pity the fool that doesn't clean a server. Just.
So does that mean there's one black guy on the investigation? And the rest are white?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not there. Oh, man. Great quote from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We have top men investigating this. What men? Top men. Egg threw it out in the chat room, and it's true. Yeah, listen, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The FBI is almost forced to do this investigation. Even if they don't want to, even if the head of the DOJ...
The agents, I think, want to.
Oh, I'm sure there's some out there that absolutely do. But even if the DOJ doesn't want this to fly, personally, it has to. They're almost... it is so bad at this point with Hillary, with Benghazi, and all this other stuff, that if this was allowed to just slip to the sides and be left alone, people would lose it. And they would lose it hardcore. Because I think, and those polls tell you, the perception of Hillary Clinton in this country is that she is a thug. She's a political thug. And she will continue to be.
I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Oh, Agent Papard, could you please extinguish your cigar on the stand? It was Smith, because it's Hannibal Smith, but still, that was just one of them just wearing the Howling Mad Murdoch jacket with the hat and everything. Just oh, Agent, we see what happened was we got into her computer, and from the left side we flew in an attack helicopter, right? And did any of this happen? No. Just no.
Random. No.
They go to get him out of the mental institution to go scrub her computer. Oh, he worked through.
But he does it with like an SOS pad and some dish soap. That's not what we meant.
You think this guy? Just somebody else is watching. Like, what is wrong with this guy? What do you mean? He's the one that got us through Y2K. Like he figured it out all by himself.
guns.
I say it all the time. I was telling somebody about your idea of Biden and Trump in a debate and just how amazing it would be. The only thing that would be different, topics picked by beer pong.
Now, hang on a second. I just saw on Fox News, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, that somebody actually said, could you imagine a Trump-Biden debate? That would be pay-per-view.
Yes, we absolutely said that weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
Weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
That would be amazing. Topics chosen by beer pong.
Or by SHR.
No, by beer pong. So they each on the side, the topics written on the side, beer in the cups, question in plastic inside.
Okay.
So they throw the beer pong, get the cup, have to slug it, and then hand the question off to whoever the moderator is. That's how
Yes, but we get to pick the topics and write what's in the cups.
Sure, why not?
Right?
Sure. Well, absolutely.
We should have a Sackheads Radio and SHR debate and invite the candidates.
How great would that be? I would pick so many topics from Celebrity Jeopardy from SNL. Just to see how Joe reads them. Anal bum cover. I believe the topic is an album cover. Mr. Vice President. Famous titties for 1,000, Alex. It's famous titles. Not a fan of the ladies, are ya, Candy Crowley? Actually, I'm a trim. I don't know that for sure. I just think that would be. Actually, Will Ferrell as Alex Trebek to moderate would be even more amazing. Just that whole, just him to moderate would be awesome. What is going on here? It's still one of my favorite skits of all time on SNL. What's his name? Chris, who played Sean Connery, was awesome. It was so ludicrous and ridiculous. Oh man, but yeah. So that would be.
Do you remember the NSL skit or the SNL skit on suspected terrorists?
No.
Robert De Niro was reading a bunch of suspected terrorist names.
No.
No, you haven't seen this?
No.
He was reading a bunch of suspected terrorist names, and he said, like one of them was Mustafa Harad Upper Pooper.
And it's De Niro.
And it's De Niro did it, yeah. Could you imagine doing that today? Like Hollywood would go ballistic. Because that would be so racial.
Well,
that was back in like 2005.
Do you remember? And actually, Ag has a great idea. If the candidates don't show up for the debate, we can simulate them, and I think that's a brilliant idea. Well, even recently they had the play, and we talked about it on the show, where it was the car commercial where the dad drives his daughter to college, and he's all sad and everything as she walks away from the car, or into the military. It's sad as she walks away from the car. And SNL did a skit where dad's driving the daughter to ISIS, and as she leaves, and he looks at the ISIS member, and he's like, "Take care of her," and the ISIS member responds, "Death to America." And people were outraged by that. Oh, you can't say that, and it's horrible, and this. That. It was funny, and I said it then. Yes, it was lowbrow. Yes, it was like dirty comedy, if you will. It's Saturday Night Live.
Right.
That was one of their winners.
Right. Well, this opening skit, I think it was the Homeland Security briefing. Robert De Niro goes through a bunch of these terrorist names. Like one of them is Hous, H-O-U-S, Hous bin Fartin, P-H-A-R-T-E-N.
Oh, man. It's just, it's sad where we've gone as a society, where satire isn't even allowed to be satire.
Right.
And the things that people get outraged about. And listen, there's absolutely things on SNL that would offend me if it wasn't SNL. But it's Saturday Night Live. It's a skit comedy show. It's a show when you had some of the most brilliant comedic minds in the 70s started off. You had Chevy Chase, you had Aykroyd, you had Belushi, you had Eddie Murphy as the years went on, Steve Martin, and it was supposed to be lowbrow, silly comedy, and to have people get upset, and it's like this show, when people get upset on some of the things that we say in this show, obviously satire, it makes me laugh, because we say it all the time. This is not a show where you sit down and can have a thin skin. I always think back when we talk about all the racist stuff in this country now and how you can't mention race and all this stuff with the Confederate flag. SNL had two extremely what would be considered volatile skits now back in the day. One of them was Chevy Chase and Richard Pryor, and he was applying for a bank job. And it was the premise is they go through a whole question and answer thing, and then it was word association, and Chevy Chase starts saying all these racial words, and Richard Pryor was responding, and it was the funniest 3 or 4 minutes I've ever seen in my life. And then the other one was when Eddie Murphy went into whiteface and lived the world as a white man for a day. And just the things that were said, and he goes into the bank and he starts to fill out the loan application. He's like, we don't need that loan application. Take as much money as you want, Mr. White. Pay us back when you can, or not at all. Who cares, right? And just that whole skit, I died.
You need to see this the one I'm talking about right now, because especially in this in kind of the world we live in now, I couldn't imagine this coming out today.
No.
The left would go nuts, and the fact that they're actually the ones that put it on is hilarious. And from a transcript of it, I want to read part of it, just some of these names. He's giving the briefing. He talks about the current threat. It's a Homeland Security briefing, and he says they received 475 calls alone. Or plenty of calls have come from high school and college students nationwide. He said, in fact, we received 475 calls alone regarding this man, Mabals Eshari. He says, we also received calls regarding such nefarious terrorists such as Grabir Booby and Haid Salami. We're watching a man believed to be an Al-Qaeda lieutenant who's been farting, his cousin I been farting, and their close companion I sheet me drawers.
You got to make them laugh, folks. You got to keep a sense of humor. That's the only way you're going to get through this. Hey, we got 5 minutes left, and just real quick, I want to take mention of obviously 9/11 anniversary is coming up in 2 days. A horrific day in our country's history, and I always talk about the brief time after 9/11, how close it brought our country together, and how important things actually rose to the surface, and these silly things like we see now with Hillary Clinton and politics and Congress and Iran and all that stuff not being important. When you had Congress go out on the steps of the Capitol and sing God Bless America together, you had literally people just helping other people because it was the right thing to do. So I invite you to partake and remember all the heroes of 9/11, all those whose lives have perished, what we've learned since 9/11, and what we need to remember from 9/11. I implore that if you have young children, you teach them the true history of 9/11, not what's being taught in schools now, where they kind of frame it that some gang members took over a plane. And understand that 9/11, much like other horrific events in this country, changed the fabric of our nation. And I feel as time goes on, and now we're 14 years removed, 15-year anniversary next year. As time goes on, we forget just how much our country was impacted that day. And I talk about this every single year. If you really want to remember, there's a couple great YouTube videos out there. I talked about the two French brothers that were embedded with the New York City Fire Department that day, that did that documentary, and that documentary is just amazing. But there's also audio recordings from the city of New York for the police and fire radio traffic, and they go on for hours. Absolutely. It's on YouTube. If you just search 9/11 FDNY or NYPD audio tapes, they pop up. And they're unedited, unscripted, obviously, but they're live from that day. And this is the time of year I go back and everyone says, oh, how do you watch? I watch the videos. I watch the documentaries. I listen to the audio tapes. I actually downloaded a bunch of the radio traffic that day onto my phone, and I listened to it in my truck. And because we can't forget what happened the day we were attacked in New York in 2001.
It's only been 15 years.
14
years.
15 next year.
And it's amazing how far we've fallen as a country, how far away we've gotten from everything, and the PC has crept back in again. And
I'll tell you what was the last time, and you can talk about this last 2 years, when was the last time any president had a 100% approval rating? Ever. After 9/11, the only president to ever do that was George W. Bush, because we talk about the things he sucked at, but the thing that he was really, really good at is rallying our nation.
Yeah.
And he did so. When he took to the pile of rubble at 9/11 and grabbed a loudspeaker and addressed the men and women that were working down in the pit, trying to find survivors and, at that point, victims. Things like that. The fact that he led us, with strength. And
he stepped up and answered the call.
Yeah, and absolutely did it, and gave credit to everybody who deserved it. Was quick to point out police officers, firefighters, the military as the heroes of that day. And regular people that day who are heroes as well. So just remember on that day the thousands of people that perished.
Put your flag out.
Yeah, it should be out every single day.
It should, but if you're one of those that only flies it on, 4th of July and
it's one of those
Flag
days.
Day, it's one of those days.
And just remember that you live in a great nation, and even though we have our own problems right now, the worst attacks come from the outside, as far as loss of life. And when we talk about Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, whatever, we talk about gun violence, all this other stuff, you need to remember that that much worse is always waiting right there. And we're starting to see it with ISIS, like Al-Qaeda was back in the day, and it could get a lot worse. They'll never fly planes into a building again.
And we're all Americans.
Yeah.
And it's easier to attack a fractured and weak enemy than it is a united and strong enemy. We may have differences of opinion and different ideas about how we should be doing better as a country, and that's fine. We can have those internal debates, but we are all Americans, and we should all stand together as Americans, even though we do have differences, like a family, right? Every family has differences, but it doesn't mean you're still not a family. And I think that there's a lot of division in this country where a lot of people, I think, don't feel like we're a family. It's us versus them, and we're not all in this together trying to make it better, even though we have different ideas of how that should go, but we are still in this together, and we are still an American family.
So I challenge you to do this, and I know we're out of time and we're going a little over. I challenge you to do this on Friday morning. Observe the moment of silence. Sing God Bless America with people you love. Make sure you do your Pledge of Allegiance that morning with your kids, loved ones, or by yourself. Show your patriotism that day. Wear your red, white, and blue. I don't care where you are or where you're going. You wear it and be proud of it. And honor the memory of those who perished on that fateful day back in September 2001 in New York City, Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon. And there's a bunch of great songs if you want to remember. You just go to YouTube, search 9/11 songs, believe it or not, and it comes right up, and there's some really good ones on there. But I want to thank you all for listening. Enough of our dribble.
And where's Sacco?
Where the hell is Sacco? We will see you. Well, I'll be away next Wednesday. Clint will be here. Sacco should be here. We'll beat him with a stick. I'm gonna
way to drop that bomb on me on the air.
I'm going to try to call in if I can, but I'm going to be surrounded by vermin.
Like Vermont people?
Mice.
Oh.
And then there's ducks and some other things. So I go to Disney. So we will see you here on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for listening.
Sackheads Radio live in Disneyland.
The late night conservative talk show in America. Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.